session, we are going to look into UUID, which is a third-party package. And also, given there is a list in the state, we are going to look into how to add a new item to the list and also update an item. So let's get started. To set the code playground for today's session, you need to run this, then run npm install. With this, all the dependencies will get installed. Finally, run npm start, then you will be able to see this output. This is a static version of the contacts app. You can see there on the top there is name, mobile number and add contact, and in the bottom we have the list of contact items. So in this session, we are going to take this contacts app example and understand. So firstly, to this contacts app, we are going to add two features. The first feature is adding a new contact, and the next feature is mark as favorite. Coming to adding new contact. So once the user enters the name and mobile number and clicks on the add contact button, the corresponding contact has to be added below to the contacts list. There you can see, right? Now, coming to the mark as favorite. So we have the star there. You can see by clicking on the star, the contact will be marked as favorite. By clicking on it again, then the contact will be removed as favorite. So these are the two features that we are going to add. So firstly, let's understand the component structure and the initial code available. Coming to the component structure, so we have the app component. Within that, we have the list of contact items. Okay, so each contact is nothing but a contact item, and then the entire thing is present in the app component. Let's have a look at the code. So coming to the app component code, so there you can see, so in the state we have the contacts list. So that is a list of contact details. Okay, based on that state, based on the contacts list in the state, we are displaying the contact items. You can see there we are making use of the contact item component and we are displaying the contacts list below. So this is the app code. Coming to the contact item, so based on the details that are passed as props to the contact item, so we are displaying the name, the mobile number, whether the star should be filled or not filled. All this thing is handled within the contact item component. Okay, clear? So this is the initial code. So go through the initial code that is available for you, understand the component structure, how the state is maintained, and what are the props that are being passed. I'll just show you a brief regarding this. So here you can see this is the initial code that is available. So coming to the app component, so here you can see that we have the initial contact list. Okay, so we are initializing the contacts list with this list of data. Okay, so here you can see within the app component, in the state we are maintaining the contacts list, right? So, and in the render method, based on the contacts list, we are displaying the contact items. Okay, there you can see. So we are iterating over the contacts list and displaying the contact items. Okay, and this is the output that you will be seeing, right? There you can see the output, right? Okay. So this is a brief regarding the app code. Coming to the contact item. So here you can see that based on the contact details that are being passed as props, we are displaying the contact. So coming to the name, mobile number, whether it's favorite or not, all this is being handled here. Okay, clear? So this is what we have right now. Okay, so to this we are going to add two new features, that is adding a new contact and mark as favorite. So let's do those steps. Okay, so let's start with adding a new contact to the contacts app. That is, once the user enters the name and mobile number and clicks on add contact, the new contact has to be added below in the contacts list. So for this, firstly, we have to get an understanding about what data is necessary, right? Already some contacts are being displayed based on the initial contacts list. So let's understand the data that is available there. So you can see that for each contact item that we are displaying, so there's ID, name, mobile number and is favorite. So when it comes to a new contact, so the name and the mobile number are provided by the user. And initially, since it's a new contact, so is favorite would be false. Okay. Now coming to the ID. So ID, using this ID, we uniquely identify each and every contact. So to uniquely identify a contact, we'll make use of this ID. So whenever a new contact is being created, we have to assign a unique ID to this particular key. Okay, that is very, very important. Now the question is, how do we get a unique ID? So whenever a new contact is being added, so how can we create a unique ID for that particular contact? So for that, there are different ways. The first thing is length of the list. So let's say initially there are 3 contacts. So if a new contact is being added, we can have ID 4. Okay, let's say there are 4 contacts and then you're adding a new contact, then the ID 5. Okay, this is well and good. It sounds good, right? But let's say there is a delete contact feature. Okay, so there are 3 contacts, you added a new one. So now there are 4 contacts. Now let's say you deleted one, let's say the first contact. Okay, now you're left with 3. And if a new contact is being added, so based on the length of the list, it would be again 4. So the previously added contact and the new contact both will have ID 4, right? You can just give it a try, give it a thought why the length of the list will not work, because there are chance of duplicates there. Okay, so length of list is not an ideal solution. So if you have a delete feature or something like that, so that wouldn't be an ideal feature because there is a chance of duplicates in case of the length of the list way. Okay, now another way is using the date and time utilities. So based on the date and the time at which we are adding the contact item, we can generate a unique ID. So this will also work. Now, another way is using UUID. Okay, so out of these three, so the best way is using UUID. So let's understand about how we can make use of UUID and generate a unique ID each and every time. So UUID, which is nothing but universally unique identifier. Okay. So using the UUID package that is available, NPM provides this UUID package. Using this package, we can generate a unique ID each and every time. So that's the advantage of this. Okay, so when we want a unique ID, we make use of this UUID package to generate a unique ID each and every time. Okay, so for that, firstly, we have to install this package. So you have to run npm install UUID. So with this, the package will get installed. Okay, so let me install this package now. So let me first go to the terminal. Npm install UUID. Okay, with this, the UUID package will get installed. So you can see it got installed. So I'll just run npm start again. Okay. So yeah, I'm done installing this UUID package. The next thing is, let's make use of this UUID package. So far in the initial contact list, we have given ID1, ID2, ID3. Instead of that, let's make use of this UUID package and give a unique ID. Okay, so for that, firstly, we have to import it. So from the UUID package, we are importing the v4 method. So it's a method using which we can generate a unique ID. So import v4 from UUID. Here, v4 doesn't clearly signify what this method does, right? So it's generating a unique ID. So that is the reason we are giving an alias to it. So we have written v4 as UUID v4. Okay, so this will clearly mention that this UUID v4 is actually generating a UUID, right? So that's the reason we have given an alias to the v4 method. So that's the way how we write. So generally when we have to import the method, we write import v4 within the curly braces, right? So now if you want to give an alias to it, you have to just write as and you have to provide the new name to it. So we have given UUID v4. Okay, so now, wherever you want to generate a unique ID, you just have to call this method. So you can see there in the initial contact list. So we have mentioned ID colon UUID v4. We are calling that method. With this, a unique ID will be returned and that is getting assigned to the ID. Okay, similarly, you can see in the next objects too. Okay, clear? So this is how we generate a unique ID. Okay, so let me show you. So here, you can go to the app. So in the initial contact list, we have ID1, ID2, ID3, and so on, right? So instead of 1, 2, 3, let's have the UUID. Okay. So for that, we have to import. So the method that we want to import is v4 from the UUID package. So here the v4 itself is not that clearly signifying that we are generating a UUID. So I'm giving an alias to it. So as indicates alias. So now here we have written as UUID v4. So now I'm going to call this particular method wherever necessary. So here in the initial contact list, instead of 1, I'll call this particular method, which will give me a unique ID. So whenever this method is being called, a unique ID will get generated and will be returned. So that we are assigning here. Okay, clear? So we are done with this. I have saved the code. So let's have a look at the output. Okay. So let me inspect. So let's have a look at the state. So here you can go to the components. So here in the state, we have the contact list, right? So let me just refresh here. And you can see the IDs that are being generated, right? See, these are all unique IDs that are generated using the UUID package. Okay, there you can see. Okay. So this is how we make use of UUID package to get a unique ID each and every time. Okay. So we have seen about how to make use of UUID to get unique IDs, right? UUID package to get unique IDs. And we have seen this output too. Okay. Now, coming to adding a new contact. So here, the user will enter the name and the mobile number and will click on the add contact button, right? With this, a new contact has to be added in the contact list. So let's understand about what are the different steps involved in doing this. Here, the name and the mobile number are being maintained in the state. So as you can see there, name and mobile number are being maintained in the state. And in case of any change, the state is being updated. So you can see the on change event will be triggered. Then the on change name, on change mobile number respectively will be called. And there we are updating the state. So whenever the user enters a name and mobile number, they are appropriately being maintained in the state. Okay. So now coming to the add contact button. So here you can see that the name, the mobile number, add contact button, all these are present inside the form, right? So here coming to the add contact button, you can see there is type equal to submit. So as we previously understood, so when we click on the button with type equal to submit, the on submit event of the form will get triggered. So there you can see for the form we have the on submit equal to this dot on add contact. So when we click on the add contact button, so since the type equal to submit, so the on submit event will be triggered and the on add contact function will be called. Okay, now coming to this on add contact, so you can see that we have written event.prevent default. Previously we understood that in case of form there is a default behavior that will happen and we don't want that. So that's the reason we have to call this prevent default method. This is important, right? So we have to write event.prevent default. Okay, clear? So far we understood that the name and the mobile number are being appropriately maintained in the state. And once the add contact button gets clicked, so we have written on add contact method, so which will get called. Okay, now within this, we have to access the name and mobile number and we have to create a new contact, right? So you can see from the state, we are accessing the name and mobile number. Next, what we have to do, we have to create a new contact. So in the new contact, as we previously understood, the data that we have to maintain is ID, name, mobile number, and whether it's favorite or not. ID, we will get it using the UUID, right? Coming to the name and mobile number, we already have them in the state. So we are accessing them, we'll directly provide them. Coming to his favorite, so initially, obviously it will be false. With this, we have the data related to the new contact. Now we have to create the contact, right? So before that, let's just complete this part of code. So let me go back here, okay? So here within the app component, so you can see that in the state, we have the name and mobile number, okay? And coming to the render method, you can see that within the form, we have the name. This is the input element for the name. And this is the input element for the mobile number. And in case of the change of the name, the on change name is getting triggered where we are updating the name in the state. You can see that there. Similarly, in case of mobile number, we have on change mobile number where we are updating the mobile number in the state. So the name and the mobile number are appropriately being maintained in the state. Whenever we enter some details, so they are being appropriately maintained in the state. Now, coming to the button, right? So here we have the add contact button, right? So here you can see that we have type equal to submit. So as we previously understood, in case of this form, so when we click on a button with type equal to submit, so the on submit event for this form will get triggered. So coming to the on submit, you can see that we have written this dot on add contact, right? So here in on add contact, you can see that we have written event.prevent default. So in case of form, there is a default behavior that will happen when the submit event gets triggered. So we want to prevent that. There is a default behavior that will happen when the submit event gets triggered. So we want to prevent that. So that's the reason we have written this prevent default method. Now, within this, what do we have to do? We have to create the new contact and we have to display that in the contacts list, right? So firstly, let's create the data related to the new contact item. So for this, the details provided by the user are name and mobile number, which are maintained in the state, right? So let me access that. So name and the mobile number, right? So they are present in the state. So this dot state. I'm accessing the name and mobile number from the state. Next, let's create the new contact item. So new contact equal to, it should be an object. So the first thing that we need is an ID. It should be unique, right? So for that, we'll make use of UUID v4 as we previously understood. Next, we'll provide the name and then the mobile number. So since the keys are one and the same, I'm just directly giving them in this way. Now, coming to is favorite, right? So coming to is favorite, so this has to be false, right? So since initially we want it to be false, okay? So we have provided all these details, okay? So this should be false. Okay. So we have written is favorite is false. Done. So now we have the new contact. So now we have to add this new contact into our contacts list and appropriately it has to be displayed. So let's understand the steps involved for this. So we are done with this, right? Okay. So next, obviously we have the new contact and we have to update the contacts list in the state, right? So that's where the contacts list is being maintained. And based on the contacts list, we are displaying the contact items, right? So we have to update the state. Now, coming to updating the state. Now, this state updation will depend on the previous state, right? So previously, whatever contact items are present. So to that, we have to add a new contact, right? So in such scenarios, we'll use the callback syntax of the set state. So in case of set state, as we previously understood, one thing is the callback syntax, right? So when we have the state updation dependent on the previous state, we'll make use of the callback syntax. So here you can see that we have the previous state that will be passed as an argument to the callback, and there we are going to update the contacts list with a new contacts list. Okay, so let's see how to update the contacts list. So we have a previous list of contact items. To this, we want to add a new contact item. So let's see how to do that. So for that, there you can see we are creating a new list. Okay, so while we are creating a new list, so from the previous state, contacts list from the previous state, we are spreading it out using the spread operator, and we are adding the new contact, and together a new list is being created and being assigned to the contacts list. Right, there you can see, right? So here, using the spread operator, we have accessed all the previous contact items present in the list, and we are adding the new contact, and the new list is being assigned. Okay, so this is how we are creating. So you might be wondering, why are we doing like this? Why don't we use a dot push or something like that? So the reason here is that the state should be immutable. We shouldn't update the array or object directly. Like let's say using a dot push or something like that, you shouldn't directly update the array or object of the state. So the best practice is you have to create a new array or an object from the previous array or the object using the spread operator, add the new items that you want to add, and assign this new one to the state. This is how you have to do it. Okay, so you shouldn't write like this dot state dot contacts list equal to initial contact list, or say this dot state dot contact list dot push. These you shouldn't do. So what do you have to do? So from the previous state, using the spread operator, get the list of items, right? Then add the new item, create a completely new array, and assign it to the contacts list. Okay, clear? So in case of object also, using the spread operator, get the key value pairs, then whichever key value pairs you want to add, you want to update it, appropriately change them, and create a new object and assign it. Okay, this is how you have to follow. State should be immutable. Okay, otherwise you won't get the expected behavior. Okay, that's the reason we have made use of the spread operator. We got the contacts from the previous state, we added the new contact, created a completely new list, and we have assigned it to the contacts list. This is how we are updating the state. Okay, clear? So let's do this step and see the output. So as we previously understood, so here we have the add contact. So the on add contact is being called. We have the new contact here. So when it comes to the new contact, so now we have to update the state. So in the state, we have the contacts list. So if you update the contacts list, then the render method will be called. And based on that, the contact items will be displayed. Okay, so here the contacts list has to be updated, right? So if you update the contacts list in the state, appropriately, we'll be able to see the new contact below, right? So let's update the state. So how do we do it? This dot set state. Now, coming to this, as we previously understood, so when it's dependent, when the updation, the state updation is dependent on the previous state, we make use of the callback, right? Callback syntax. Previous state, so that will be passed as an argument here into this. And now, this, inside this, we are going to give the new state, okay? So here what we have to update, contacts list, right? So let's update the contacts list. Okay, now coming to this, as we understood, state should be immutable. So we have to provide a new list, but it's dependent on the previous list. So let's get the items from the previous list using the spread operator. So previous state dot contacts list. Okay, with this we got all the contacts. Now we have a new contact. We are adding that to here. Okay, this has given us a completely new list. We are assigning that to the contacts list. And this is how we update the state. Okay, clear? So we are done updating the state here. So once the state gets updated with the new list, so here there's a new contact. So there's a state updation happening. So the render method will be called. Now we have the contacts list with the new contact too. So the contact item corresponding to the new contact also will be added. So shall we have a look at the output? So let's do that. So let me add a new contact. So let me just close this first. So let me say Pranitha and let me just give a mobile number. Okay, let me add the contact. And you can see here the contact has been added below. Okay, clear? So we are done with this feature, right? That is adding a new contact item. Okay, you can try with some more. Okay. So I'm just adding some. Okay. So you can see that, right? Okay. So this is done, right? So here you will be able to see this output, right? So here we entered the name and the mobile number, and on clicking on add contact button, the contact has been added below. But there's one thing here. After adding a new contact, the form fields should be empty, but they still persist. They have the old values, right? So we have to make them empty. So how do we do that? Simple. When we are adding a new contact item, we are updating the state, right? So while updating the state, let's set the name and the mobile number to an empty string. Then the fields will become empty, right? So let's do that. So here you can see after adding the contact, so the values still are present here. They should become empty, right? So for that, so this is where we are adding a new contact, right? So here we'll set the name as an empty string and the mobile number also as an empty string. Okay, clear? So let's have a look at the output. So now let me add a new contact. Okay, say some number and let's say 77777. Okay. Now let me add the contact. So you can see after that the contact has been added and here they are empty, right? So we are done achieving that. Okay. So we were able to see this output, right? After adding the name and mobile number and clicking on add contact, the fields have become empty. So there you can see the output there. Okay. So now we'll click on add contact. You can see they have turned out to be empty. Okay, so we are done with this particular feature, right? So now another feature that we aim to do is mark as favorite feature to the contacts app. So there are stars beside each contact, there you can see, right? By clicking on the star, so that particular contact should become favorite. So in case if it is not filled, if the star is filled and if you click on it, it should be removed as favorite. Okay, so basically we are toggling whether the contact is favorite or not, right? So if it is a favorite, we are removing it from the favorite. If it is not a favorite, then we are adding it as a favorite, right? So this is what we have to do. Coming to this, right? So the favorite, the details regarding whether a contact is favorite or not is being maintained here in the contact details. So you can see there's is favorite key. So if it is false, so it means that it's not a favorite contact. And if it is true, it's a favorite contact. So if the is favorite is false, you can see the star is not filled. In case is favorite is true, you can see that the star is filled. And when the user clicks on the star image, so the is favorite property has to toggle, right? If it is true, it should become false. If it is false, it should become true. This is what we have to do, okay? And this data is being maintained in the state, right? So you can see that the star is present inside the contact item, whereas the data that we have to update is present in the app component, right? So firstly, we'll write a method for it to toggle the is favorite feature. So you can see that there's a method toggle is favorite, to which we'll pass the ID, the particular contact for which we want to toggle, whether it's favorite or not. So inside that, we are going to toggle the is favorite. Okay, and we are passing this as a prop to the contact item so that when the star is being clicked appropriately, this function will be called. Coming to the contact item, so in case of the contact item, you can see that we have the button. So this is the star button. So for the on click, you can see on click favorite icon method will be called. So in the on click favorite icon, so this is where we are going to call the toggle is favorite, which is being passed as a prop. So toggle is favorite is being passed as a prop to the contact item. So we are calling this method inside this on click favorite icon, to which toggle is favorite, we are passing the ID so that we can identify the contact item which we have to toggle. Okay, so let's do these steps first. So here you can see that in the initial contact list, we have is favorite and we want to toggle this, and this data is being maintained in the state here, right? So we need a method to update this here. Okay, so it's toggle is favorite. I'm going to write the method related to it. So for this, we are going to pass the ID. So we'll pass the ID as an argument. So the contact item corresponding to this ID. So the is favorite will be toggled for only that contact item here. Okay. And this method should be called when the star image gets clicked, right? So whereas the star image that is present inside the contact item. So we'll pass this as a prop to the contact item so that it can be called from the contact item component. So let me pass that to the contact item. You can see here we have the contact item. So let me pass that here as a prop. Okay. So this is being passed here as a prop. So now in the contact item, so firstly we'll access the prop. Okay. So the prop that we are passing is toggle is favorite, right? Let's access this. So this should be called when the star image button gets clicked. So this is the star image button, right? When this gets clicked, so this particular prop has to be called. So for that, let's add an on click to this. So when this button gets clicked, so a particular method has to be called, right? So let's have a function for this on click, say favorite icon. Okay, so this is a method. Okay, so this has to be called when we have this being called. Okay, there should be constant here. Now, so here we have mentioned this. Now, within this, what do we have to do? We have to call this toggle is favorite, which is being passed as a prop. So this is where the state will get updated and appropriately the star image will be either filled or will be unfilled, right? So let me call this prop to which we are passing the ID as a as an argument, right? So we have to pass the ID as an argument to this. So we have to access that from the contact details and we'll pass that here. Okay, clear? So what we have done. So when the star image button gets clicked, so this on click favorite icon will be called. So we are calling this toggle is favorite, right? You can see toggle is favorite. This method will be called with the corresponding ID. So now in the app component, so you can see that this is the toggle is favorite method that is being called. Now, what do we have to do here? Here we have to update it the state, right? So let's see about that. Okay. So we are done with the steps so far. So let's proceed further. So here what do we have to do? We have to update the state. So from the state, we have to access the contacts list. In the contacts list, correspondingly, we have to find the contact of that particular ID. We are passing an ID as an argument, right? We have to find the contact corresponding to that ID and we have to update is favorite for that particular contact. So here we are trying to update an item in the list of the state, right? So we are taking a particular item of the list that is present in the state and we are trying to update, right? So firstly, you can see that for updating the state, we want to access the previous state. So we are going to make use of the callback syntax. So this dot set state of, we are accessing the previous state. There you can see that will be passed as an argument to the callback. So within that, using the map, we are iterating over the contacts list. Over each contact, we have to check whether it matches with the ID that is being passed as an argument. If there is a match, then we have to update the is favorite, right? Each contact dot is favorite is equal to not of is contact dot is favorite. We are trying to toggle the value, right? If it is true, then false, false, then true, right? But there's an issue in this particular thing. What we are trying to do, we are directly trying to update the each contact object which is present inside the state. Right? As we previously understood, the state should be immutable. At the same time, the objects, the arrays present inside the state should also be immutable. But here, we are trying to update each contact directly, right? We shouldn't do this. We have to create a new object. We shouldn't update the object directly. Create a new object. In case it's an array, you have to create a new array. Okay? So you shouldn't do it in this manner. What you have to do is you have to create a new object from the each contact. You can see using the spread operator, we are getting the key value pairs. Now, in case of is favorite, we have to toggle the value. So we have provided is favorite equal to not of each contact dot is favorite. With this, the toggle value will be assigned to is favorite. This will have the new object. Okay, we are returning this new object. Okay, clear? In case if the ID doesn't match, obviously we want the previous contact itself. So we are directly returning each contact. There's no change. So directly we are returning each contact. But in case if the ID matches, we are creating a new object with the other details and toggling the is favorite value. Okay, this is how you have to do it. So here the key point is you shouldn't update the object directly. You have to create a new object and then you have to appropriately give the values and you have to provide that to the state. And since map creates a new list, so with the objects that you've written, so a new list will get created and will be assigned to the contacts list. Okay, so with this we can ensure that the state is immutable and the objects and the arrays that are present inside it are also immutable. Okay, that is very, very important. Otherwise, you won't be getting expected behavior. Okay, clear? So now let's try this out. So here in toggle is favorite, now we have to update the state. So what we have to do is, so we have to update is favorite corresponding to the contact item of this ID. Okay, so for that, as we want to update the state, so this dot set state, since we have to access the previous state and we have to update the is favorite of a particular contact, so let's make use of the callback syntax. So previous state, okay, so that in the callback, the previous state will be passed as an argument. So here, since we just have one value that we have to return, so we have the contacts list that we have to update. So here, we have to iterate over the contacts list from the previous state, check if the ID matches. In case the ID matches, we have to toggle is favorite value, right? So firstly, let's iterate. So previous state dot contacts list dot map of, and now we have each contact. So now for each contact, we have to check whether the my ID matches or not. Okay, so let's do that. If the ID is equivalent to the each contact dot ID, so then we have to toggle is favorite, right? So let's do that. So each contact dot is favorite equal to not of each contact dot is favorite. But we understood the issue with this particular one. What is the issue? So the issue here is we are trying to directly update the object present in the state. So making it mutable, right? But as we understood, the state should be maintained immutable. So the state shouldn't be updated and even the objects, the arrays present inside the state should also be immutable. So they shouldn't be directly updated. So what do we have to do? We have to create a new object. Okay, so let's create a new object using the each contact. So firstly, using the each contact, so I'm going to use a spread operator and I'm going to get all the key value pairs. Now I have to update is favorite, right? So that should get toggled. So I'm accessing each contact dot is favorite and I'm putting a not, so it will toggle the value. Okay, so I have to finally return this new object. In case if the ID doesn't match, so there are no changes, so we'll directly return each contact. So now here the map function will create a new list with these objects and will assign it to the contacts list. In this way, we are ensuring that the state is immutable and also the objects and the arrays present inside it are also immutable. Okay, so we are keeping them in that way, keeping them immutable. So now let's have a look at the output. So here you can see this is the output, right? So here there are favorites, so let me click on this. So you can see that now it's unfilled. You can see it's fill, unfilled, right? Similarly, you can try with this, right? So appropriately, the is favorite is being toggled, right? So we are done with this feature. So simple, right? So here in this particular scenario, we have updated a particular item in the state, right? So for that, what we have to do, we have to create a complete list, and even the objects inside it that have to be updated, you should create a new object for it. Okay, so we shouldn't update the property of a list item directly. So even if you want to update a property of the list item, you should create a new object and you have to return it to the list. Okay, so that it will be immutable. You can ensure that it is immutable. Okay, and we have seen this output, right, where we have toggled the is favorite. Okay, there you can see. Okay, so let's summarize what we have understood in today's